Robert, your mindset is completely flawed. Your thinking has to change in regards to these two leads. They are members of management, and until you, as their station manager, come to grips with that, you're never going to get past this. But there's a way to do this, right? So your thinking needs to be, these guys are members of management. I'm going to train them, I'm going to sink my time and effort into these guys. Then their behaviors will change, then the results will come. Don't think there's a magic wand where you can just say, oh, you guys are members of management now. No, you're going to have to change their mindset. But first, we've got to change your mindset. And that means you're going to have to take a proactive approach to this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Now What podcast, episode 23. My name is Glenn Sharp. I am the president and CEO of Sharp Leadership Development. We are tumbling toward 65 and 70 degrees this week in Cincinnati. I hope you guys are experiencing warm weather where you are. But let's get right into it. We're going to stay on the course that we have been for the last couple of months here. We have a question from Robert in California. He's doing most of the work. This guy is working 90 hours a week, and he's got a couple of leads who, in all honesty, are probably working at 60-70% capacity. And he wants to make the transition from doing it all himself to holding his two leads accountable and being true members of station management. So the big question is, how do I influence them and get them to take on this responsibility? Okay, so obviously we got to talk about the results cone, all right? Robert, your mindset is completely flawed, just like many of the individuals that work with me and I coach, all right? Your thinking has to change in regards to these two leads. They are members of management, and until you, as their station manager, come to grips with that, you're never going to get past this. And Robert, you know, you and I have had many conversations in regards to this, and it's just a matter of pulling the trigger. But there's a way to do this, all right? So your thinking needs to be, these guys are members of management. I'm going to train them, I'm going to sink my time and effort into these guys. Then their behaviors will change, then the results will come. Don't think there's a magic wand where you can just say, oh, you guys are members of management now. No, you're going to have to change their mindset. But first, we've got to change your mindset, and that means you're going to have to take a proactive approach to this. You guys have all seen this graph before, the red line versus the green line. It's one of my favorite graphs. It's probably the most popular concept at business school and graduate school for change management. We're doing most of the work up front, and unfortunately there are people on this planet, station managers, executives, and everyone in between, who try to follow that red line. They either are reactionary or they wait and hope, thinking it's going to change organically. It does not. So Robert, I want you to think about doing the work up front. It's going to start with your boss, all right? So you'll notice the image on the next slide here, the backstop. We've talked about this in previous podcasts. This is where, Robert, you and your boss are having the conversation first. Now, just like I've told you guys in previous podcasts, most people do not take my advice on this. It is actually very interesting to hear their excuses as to why. But I want you to imagine, Robert, that you are trying to get your two leads to become members of management, and they don't agree with you, and they go around you and go to your boss. What a problem that could be. So what I want from you is to do the work up front. Establish a solid backstop with your boss. What does that mean? That means you and your boss are going to have a candid conversation in regards to, hey, I need to make some changes. I need to make sure that I am making these guys members of management. They need to be held accountable for their actions. They need to start carrying some of what you call the lion's share of the work. All right, so one of the ways you can do this, as you can see on the screen, this is a pretty cool tool that was given to me back in the day. It's called the Leadership Coaching Scorecard, but it's a fabulous tool for you and your boss to have a good conversation and to get on the same page in regards to how you're going to do this. So this is all about you and your behavior change. So you'll notice there's three separate sections to this, all right? Let's start with the one that everyone really should begin with, and that is the bottom section. What you're doing is you're having a conversation with your manager and you're letting him or her know, These are the changes I want to make in my behavior. Now, why is this such a big deal for most individuals? Well, you have to admit to your boss that you've got to make some changes, that you're not perfect, that you've got things to work on. So in your particular case, Robert, it is I'm going to go from doing it all myself to delegating and training my folks. So that means you're going to have to change a little bit. Right? So that would be the conversation you have with your boss, the changes that you need to make in order to get to where you want to go. So let's talk about getting to where you want to go. Let's talk about the top section. Now, this is a different mindset, this top section. This isn't for everyone. This is the reason why I'm presenting this to you, Robert. Right? 3 years of goals. Obviously, you're going to go over 2026 with your boss, and that's going to be a lot more detailed than 2027 or 2028. But what do I mean by this is a mindset or a different type of mindset? Not very many people think 3 years from now, right? And that's what I want from you. I want you to present to your boss that, listen, I have a plan, all right, and I'm going to do something about it. So the 2026 goal could be, for example, my 2 leads are going to be trained up so much so that they could take over my position in an emergency situation if they needed to. That would be a great goal for 2026. 2027 would be they're going to be so refined, their skills are going to be so refined that they'll be able to actually take over my position in a non-emergency situation where they can maintain the position. And then 2028 could be obviously training and backfilling them so that other individuals on your team are trained up and they can step in at a moment's notice. Basically, what we're trying to do is you and your boss are trying to determine how you spend your time. All right, so you see the percentages there. You're going to let them know this is the percentage of time I'm going to be spending in certain areas. For example, as a station manager, right, you're going to be spending maybe 70% of your time on operations. You may be spending 20% of your time on training and 10% of your time on admin. Well, that's going to change if you're going to make this transition from you to your leads. Now you're going to spend a lot more time training them. So that training percentage is going to go up. It might be 40%, and then you throttle back to half your time in operations and then only 10% on admin. Maybe your boss could have another individual on your team handle some of the admin work so that you can spend almost no time on admin and someone else can take that responsibility. The key is for you and your manager to have this conversation at the very least once a quarter and go over this once a quarter because things change, priorities change. All I have to do is say the word COVID and everybody knows that change happens and it affects things. Right? So that's you, and that is you and your boss being on the same page. Let's talk about the leads, right? Because you're going to have to address it with both of them after you've established the backstop and there's really nowhere for them to go other than to you. There's where the birthday cake comes in. And what I would ask each lead individually, and let me repeat that, individually, do not get them both together yet. Talk to both of them individually and lay that foundation of agreement first. What I would ask them is, what do you want? What do you want? Some of these leads might want to be VP one day. Some of them cannot wait to be trained, and that's great. Others might be a little bit resistant. You never know. I've had a lead one time where I asked them this question, and they were fine. They're like, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to move up, but I'll help you, boss. It doesn't matter whether they want to be a manager or not. They're still going to up their game. You just want to know what course of action you're going to take with them. Obviously, if one of the leads wants to be a manager or a VP one day, then that's a different course of action. Your next level would be, or let's describe exactly what a manager looks like, day-to-day operations, what your mindset needs to be. Is that okay with you? Are you sure you want this? Because not everybody understands truly what it means to be a member of management. Right? And then obviously you can formulate a plan that would be the candle on the top. For the leads, I want you to think about accountability, right? I want you to think about this particular accountability ladder. This is tough for the leads. I want you guys to think like a lead for a second, right? And I want, Robert, you to think like them. Could you imagine going from, that's my buddy over there and I hang out with him, his wife and his kids, to now I'm your boss, right? They need to understand the accountability ladder and the way this works. Number one, the accountability ladder works for them. They need to hold themselves accountable and make sure that they are truly being the managers that you want them to be, members of management. What does that mean exactly? Well, they can't be their friend and their manager, as you know. So for example, imagine they're around the station, Robert, and you see a couple of people slacking off and they're not doing any work. All right, they're just they're chit-chatting or they're on their phones. No one wants to deal with conflict, but you have to deal with it because the leads need to understand they're not getting paid to just stand around and do nothing. Right? They need to understand that other people are watching them, and that's a mindset difference from being an individual contributor to being a manager. They need to understand their role as a manager. So that would be, obviously you and them holding yourselves accountable. Hey, listen, let's get into a room. Let's talk about this. Let's do some situational training. You investing in them, Robert, on a consistent basis as part of that training percentage or bucket that you put on the coaching scorecard. But that will be a great plan, but they need to understand what it means to be a member of management. This is why most people don't get into management, because it's tough. It's actually very, very difficult at times, and you have to do some of the difficult things. All right, so I hope this helps, Robert. I hope you are in tune with this and you want to really help these leads. Think about what I said. I think it will really go well for you. So I wish you all the best of luck, Robert. Hang in there. I'm a resource for you. Make sure that you pick up my book, Now What? That's what this podcast is based on. It's full of tips, tricks, techniques for new managers or folks that have been in Robert's spot where he needs to train a couple of leads. I think it would be very helpful. You can pick it up on Amazon. It's available on ebook and paperback, so go ahead and pick that up. Okay, in episode 24, we're going to tackle a real-world scenario. This is going to be from Bobby in Lima. Bobby is struggling with turnover, and I know this is an issue for many of you. He's a little different, though. He's getting frustrated because he's putting a lot of time and effort into his folks, and they're leaving, either for internal positions, which is actually not a bad thing, but also external positions. So Bobby obviously has a question about that. We'll certainly tackle that when we get to an episode 24. In the meantime, I wish you all the best in your management and leadership journey. Good luck, and I will see you guys in episode 24.